Well, now, I think I can probably do stuff again. Somewhat. I might even sound better than the last time I did one of these things. Ay, 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 ay. What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka Multimedia Jay, and it's been a while, and I've been, rather preoccupied, as you folks may know, and I even forgot to set the camera properly with this whole thing. So let's get this set up, and let's get into this here. And I know I didn't title it as such, but chat streams all fall under late night nerd lounge mostly nowadays. We're going to be talking about stuff. So I do have to say that, let's just start over now. We finally got the camera right. What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka Multimedia Jay, and welcome to the late night nerd lounge. I don't know how much I still sound like I have a head cold. Some people on the internet who like to pretend that everything they see is fake and come up with conspiracy theories for how everything they say is fake may think that, oh, he's faking having had COVID. No, I am not. This is actually, with its much darker T line than the control line, this is actually from when I was at my worst. I've been just keeping the test around so that I could say that when I finally got back on camera. Holy crap, this thing finally found me. It was truly my Doc Brown moment with the pandemic. Like, oh my goodness, they found me. I don't know how, but they found me. Like when the terrorists find the Doc in the Back to the Future movie. Well, I don't know if that's really the best analogy for finally running into COVID and stuff like that. But all this, but hey, November 2022 and finally getting it for the first time, I'd say that's a pretty good run. Let's see how much longer I can take running into it the second time, especially when I jumped on Amazon and bought some KF94 masks. So now I can upgrade my mask setup to something that would be considered high quality according to the way people talk about that stuff nowadays. I've been running some cloth masks into the ground to be cheap, but I'd rather not get this again. So it's just like the ROI of masking is pretty much the sort of, here's the thing. So an important thing we got to say with regards to the pandemic right now. I mean, yeah, this is under Pandemi-Rants. It finally got me. But that doesn't mean that I'm not still going to be very, very opinionated and a bit of a firebrand about this stuff. But before we get too deep into any kind of discussion, let me just say this. Dear Rochelle Walensky and the CDC and everybody in the Biden administration over there in Washington, the election is over now. Can we stop being a bunch of pansy asses about COVID? Because where it's still going around, I realize that national entities like folks in Washington have to look at the country as a whole. But in the Northeast, with New York and all the international business in and out of New York and also in and out of Boston, there's plenty of COVID still going around. We have more community transmission than a lot of the rest of the country. There are parts of the country right now where community transmission has dropped off. But in Connecticut, nicely situated between Boston and New York, we get the best of both worlds. And we've had hospitalizations persistently higher than they were during the Delta variant. The BAs and the alphabet soup of 2022 variants has actually put more people in the hospital when scaled to population here in Connecticut than the Delta variant did. Now, the Omicron variant is still the clear winner, but that was a big spike. We have a slow burn, and that's exactly the sort of thing that I was concerned about. That, individuals need to look into, like myself, we need to look into protecting ourselves, our health, and our ability to make money, because there's only one of us. And even if you have like a family or a spouse or whatnot, you don't want to be a burden to your family. It's just the values where I'm from. You want to support yourself in life. How are you going to do that if you now can't work because of long COVID? How are you going to do that if you couldn't be bothered to wear a mask and now you have whatever complications and whatnot because you got infected one too many times? And then there's, of course, the cost of being out as well. So we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things. Let me just say up front, the real cost of this. Here is how it works with the 9-to-5ers if you get COVID. It's classed under leave of absence, it's classed under a leave of absence, similar to if you had a surgical procedure or something else done. You're going to have a lot of paperwork to do through a special company that manages leaves of absence. You're also going to have conversations with human resources You're going to have all the complications of having something like COVID, including if you have to talk back and forth to get doctor's appointments in, get clearance to return to work, or in my case, chase down some Paxlovid before you hit the 5-day deadline on it. Especially if you get it over the weekend when your when your GP isn't in their office, primary care physician, for those of you thinking I just made a drug reference there, but or general physician, general practitioner, whatever you call your doctor or whoever you go to for that kind of stuff. It's like you're gonna have a ton to do. You're gonna have a ton to do, and it's gonna cost you a lot, because the only money you're going to get while you can't work because of isolation is stuff that you have to bureaucratically chase down. Now, the state of Connecticut has a paid leave program for stuff like this, but they've already got it in the documentation that the state doesn't want to cover COVID diagnoses. It needs to be something where you're incapacitated for a couple of days. So it's just a bureaucratic mess. So you get this thing, hopefully you're not living paycheck to paycheck, because your finances are disrupted. And then maybe you can chase down money. And even then, whether it's through your employer with a disability program or through something from the state government or something like that, is it going to be what you would have made otherwise? And then ask yourself this question. Is it worth it to potentially have this kind of a disruption? And it's November, we're heading towards the holidays, so think about that as well. Is it worth it to have that kind of a disruption in your life instead of just wearing a mask, instead of getting vaccinated and boosted? Is it really that worth it? I don't think so. What does our sound like instead of getting vaccinated and boosted? All right, that sounds somewhat normal. But it didn't break too much not too much of this stuff broke on me when I was knocked flat on my back by this thing. So where do we even begin with this? Like, it finally got me. It was my Doc Brown moment. And I'll want to see if I, how long it'll be if I ever get it again. One of those things. Because successive infections of COVID are not good. There's emerging data coming out suggesting that there's a cumulative effect where it clobbers your immune system if you get infected too many times. And you run the risk of more complications the more times. So it's not like nature's booster shots, like the anti-vaxxers say. So anyways, now that the election is over, can the United States government finally stop being delusional about this thing and its drain on the economy and its threat to our way of life? Because people stuck at home that can't work, or even if we just go full on let it rip and people are allowed officially to work sick, you're still talking about potential loss of productivity, safety hazards, things like that. Can you imagine a truck driver in like a 70,000 pound 18-wheeler roaring down the highway trying to make deliveries on time with a 104-degree fever? You really want that on our roads? Look, COVID, as much as people want to ignore it, is one of the biggest threats to our way of life out there. Even though we have vaccines and treatments and masks are cheap, so if you want to go around masking, or if you're a business and you want to require people to mask and stuff like that, if you want, any masking and whatnot, still, it's not that expensive anymore. I remember, get this, when all this began in 2020 and the industry got its ass kicked trying to keep up with the surging demand, paying $20 for a super thin, think like women's lingerie, the cloth that's used for like women's bras and stuff like that. Something that thin and skimpy as a face mask for $20. It's the first and last time I ever bought a face mask off a Newegg. First and last time I ever bought a face mask off a Newegg. So, but nowadays you got like 30 packs of KF94s or N95s, or there's a European mask too that's like something 99, like P99 or something. There's all kinds of options if you want to wear masks. There's all kinds of options. There's vaccines, there's tests, there's treatments, especially here in the United States. You had all this wonderful stuff that didn't exist 2 years ago. Ask yourself, is something like wearing a mask really worth, is it worth it to try and mitigate, your risks in not getting this thing and stuff like that. It's really something to think about, because even if you are a dishonest SOB who pretends they don't have it when you get it, if that cumulative effect of multiple infections eventually comes back to bite you, was it really worth it to to be that way? I mean, are you really giving up too much by wearing something in an area where there's substantial community transmission still going around? Because there's parts of the country where there isn't, where there's moderate or low. There's parts of Florida, there's parts of the South, there's even parts of California, in case you think those numbers are all people in red states hiding cases. There are parts of California, blue state, that have lower community transmission than Connecticut and Massachusetts and Rhode Island does right now. Seriously. So I hope that now that the election is over, Washington can finally find some intelligence within them and realize it probably wasn't worth it to wimp out on COVID so much. Because the worry, of course, was year 2 of a presidency. This is traditionally when things start shifting the other way in this country, because we have a pendulum of stuff swinging back and forth. As we saw with the election results last night, which is one of the reasons why I didn't have this discussion last night, the pendulum swing is a lot smaller than people thought it would be. So I would very much love for people in Washington and the CDC and all these people, these policymakers, to stop being morons about COVID. Stop emboldening people's stupid behavior that punishes everybody else. America is supposed to be a country of personal responsibility. And that means people who are irresponsible need to be held accountable for their behavior and their actions. It's why we don't tolerate drunk driving. It's why we don't tolerate various crimes. It's why we don't tolerate various bad things that people can do to other people. So it's time to stop pretending that masks don't exist. It's time to stop having our doddering old president talk about, oh, the pandemic's over, but we still have a COVID problem. It's time. Well, it's also time to stop taking medical and scientific advice from politicians, obviously. But it's time for the stupidity to be called out for what it is. And it's time for the government to stop pretending that the stupidity isn't a constant threat to our society and our way of life. You talk inflation, for example. Inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. One of the ways you create too few goods for the money to chase is by disrupting the supply chains. One of the ways you disrupt supply chains is by having to shut down factories or whatever, or having lower output from those factories because people keep getting sick. It's like, you know what? I'm using these as handkerchiefs nowadays. Yeah, it's like getting over bronchitis at this point for me. So you have all that going on. I already did a laundry load of those things. Now I'm starting the next one. So it's time for the stupidity to stop. The election's over. It's time for the CDC to stop being morons and start realizing that mitigation is an all of the above strategy. And don't send the wrong messaging that encourages the stupids to keep on stupiding. I would love to get back to the normal of 2019, but I will not be doing that when I know how stupid people are and how they're going to get everybody sick. In the name of what? Walking around blabbering about nothing to their buddy at Walmart because they have nothing better to do or whatever. Some of the things people talk about if you go into Walmarts or other stores is just so banal and brain dead. It's crazy. But look, I've said time and again, the pandemic is a character test. It's a check on someone's character and how what they think of other people. And it's time to start taking the stupids seriously and the threat they pose as this virus continues to be as contagious as measles. Because even if you survive this thing, well, what's the cost going to be? And then even if we pull back the remaining regulations, no more isolation and whatnot, you can keep on working and stuff if you can work sick and muscle through it. how much of a drain to the economy are we willing to take from lost productivity, safety hazards in the workplace, injuries, lost time injuries, and others, anything else that just drains the economy, anything else that hurts us. How about long COVID, people getting disabled? How much money do we want to be funneling to people who end up with long COVID and can't work anymore? It's We got some very serious conversations that need to be had. And now that the election's over, it's time to have them. It's time to stop being tenacious because we might lose seats in the midterms. The midterms are over. Time for the stupidity to stop. It's that simple. Okay, so what's my story with this crap? How did it find me? Oh, well, I tried talking about this with the human resources folks while going over the leave of absence paperwork and stuff like that over the phone, of course. I'm not going down to people's offices, COVID positive, and stuff like that. Over the phone, of course. I'm not going down to people's offices, COVID positive and crap like that. Anyways, I said that. What am I doing? So, because of how tenacious I've been with this thing, because I didn't want to get it, because of how tenacious I've been, I am very limited in what I do. I mean, I'm an introvert already. I'm the kind of person that'll have enough to do with fooling around with computers or playing video games or watching movies. This stack of Blu-rays has been on my desk for over a year now. And I still haven't gotten around to watching them all. I'm the kind of person that can, stay out of people's hair, so to speak. I'm the kind of person that can keep to myself. And it won't be too much of an issue. It'd be nice, though, to, not be alone so much. But it's just so much crap going on in the world. I just don't really have much of an inner circle in the offline world, if anything. So we have that crap going on. But yeah. So I pretty much know where I've been and who I've been around that could have given me this thing. I don't really have much for human interaction because of the pandemic, because I know people are stupid. I know people are going to get each other sick, and they're going to get infected multiple times because there's so many idiots out there who are basically snowflakes. They think that their feelings are more important than the way the world works. And this includes people who think that they can ignore how COVID works, and then they wonder why they keep getting infected. So some of them are stupid about it. I go into Walmart one day, I see 4 people with no masks, back when masks were more of a thing. I see 4 people, no masks, blabbering in Walmart about all the ways that COVID screwed them up. I lost my sense of taste, I got this, I got brain fog. Yeah, you definitely have brain fog, you moron. These people bragging about how COVID messed them up. Like, what? Why is that something to be proud of? Shouldn't be. I don't expect some people out there to make any sense. So, with all that lovely stuff going on out in these woods, yeah, with all that crap going on out in these woods, it's a no-brainer. Stay home. I got enough to do around here anyways. I'm one of those guys with that to-do list that I never get to. Even when I have time off like this, it's a curse. Something along those lines. So, it's very easy for me to basically throttle my interactions with others and not really associate with people very much. So I can very easily point out when someone was a little too sick around me and maybe I got it from them. So last week, Wednesday night, 9 to 5, I'm working with one of the guys who drives fork trucks all night, a job where you're by yourself, probably the most out of anywhere in the building. And he's coughing up a storm. I mean, I'm like, this guy's got something. Hopefully it's not COVID. I don't know. We have to exchange paperwork for some stuff that we're doing. That's probably what did it. Didn't use the hand sanitizer soon enough or whatever. Somehow did a hand to mouth or whatever. Or maybe, only wearing cloth masks at the time. I walked through his droplet crowd and voop, that was it. And voop, that was it. Although masks, in the case of the mask equivalent of a breakthrough infection, filtering stuff lowers the viral load you're exposed to, which limits the potential of the virus right off the bat because your immune system's already on it, especially if you have all your shots like I do. So That's probably what did it. And it's disturbing because I was getting my car worked on that week. My mechanic, who already is getting slammed to the point where he's a week behind, him and his techs are having a hard time keeping up with the demand. He drove me home on Thursday to work on my car. So he's a close contact. We did open the windows for part of the trip, but because we were too close too long, he's a close contact. I did call and looks like he didn't get it. But I could have been contagious by then after getting infected. But, well, Jay, what about the incubation period? The incubation period is shorter on newer variants than it used to be. Omicron got the incubation period down to 3 days from the 5-6 days of the original variants. So now we're up to BA5 and the BQ variant. So I could say maybe it went down to 2 or something. But the sickest person that I was around anytime in the time when you could have figured out when I got infected was that forklift guy. And of course, we've lifted all mitigations, no masks required. Guy was coughing all over the place without a mask. And there's no more special break room or cafeteria or whatever. If you want to take breaks somewhere, you have to use the same cafeteria as everybody else in the building. So if there's a droplet cloud left over from somebody, you're breathing it with no mask because you're sitting down to eat. These people just have given up. They were stupid like these people have given up. They were stupid just like the people in Washington that were so afraid of the midterms that they sold out the health of wide swaths of the American public for votes. And these people were a private sector answer to that crap. So yeah, they pulled back the mitigations, don't require anything, There's probably nothing stopping somebody from working sick and pretending they have something other than COVID if they can knock the symptoms down enough, with no mask, by the way. It's just garbage over there. Now here's the problem with these people and their garbage work environment. I can go to other places and have the same garbage work environment and make more money. Why should I stick with this underdog, struggling company that's going to treat me like garbage if I can get treated like garbage somewhere else and make more money? Unless I find some place where I'm not treated like garbage. So, what am I gaining here? What am I gaining? What exactly? Why should I stay with these people? These people don't understand. Talent is a market. And if their products and services or their work environment isn't good enough, they're going to lose people. And they wonder why they keep having turnover. They wonder why people keep quitting. And they wonder why they keep having to retrain, because the people that actually know the stuff don't stick around. Or they get sick with COVID. They find out the company put you through this rigmarole because you were honest, didn't try to hide your illness. And, right. So I'm probably going to call corporate and see if they give me a different answer than our local HR did about mitigation measures. What exactly is stopping somebody from working sick? I'm really curious if anybody even thought of this, because there's a very, very good motivation to try and get away with it if you have to go through all this crap, if you get infected. I'm just wondering when there's going to be a death in the warehouse. You have a bunch of people doing this. They're all deep reds. So they're all pandemic deniers. They're all COVID minimizers, and they hate masks. They hated the vaccines. Maybe they're not even vaccinated. So they get infected enough times and they keep it hush-hush and try and hide the symptoms with a ton of OTC meds until someone goes into cardiac arrest because something went wrong with them and they die on the warehouse floor with a non-shockable heart fibrillation or something like that. Then what? No. Is that what it's going to take? I know the OSHA fines for someone dying on the job are laughably low compared to a lot of companies' payrolls out there. But it's one of the bigger ironies of our so-called workplace safety organizations in this country. But is that what it's going to have to come to? Is someone going to have to drop dead on the job with these people before they'll start taking any of this seriously again? Either way, the odds are that the guy coughing up a storm gave it to me. And the mask that I was wearing at the time cut the dose so it wouldn't go as far. I have Thursday scheduled off. Friday, things start feeling weird. and I got a sore throat. And I'm like, okay, that guy had a throat bug. He gave it to me. There's also plausible deniability right now for the people spreading COVID by hiding their infections so they don't get kicked out of work, because there's also a lot of flu going around. There's RSV going around. I mean, unless the company actually makes them test, which they don't have the authority to do, there's nothing stopping somebody from working sick if their symptoms are mild enough without a mask and infecting other people. Now, the only way that's a problem is if somebody actually takes the virus seriously and tests, like me. You get a whole bunch of people working together who are all unvaccinated, hate everything, They're going to just keep infecting each other over and over again. Nobody's going to say anything because they're all going to be like, it's just a cold. There's a lot of crap going around. My kid brought something home from school. And unless you make them test, you have no chance of stopping this. So yeah, this is exactly how I figured I would get this thing. Some moron, I know there's anti-vaxxers at this place. These meatheads these warehouse meatheads can't figure out that the quality, something that Vince McMahon figured out just like that when he tried redoing the XFL before the pandemic started. The quality of the human being matters at least as much if they can do the job as if they can do the job correctly. And companies usually care about that when it suits them. You can have the most productive person in the world. If they steal from the company, you fire them because they're dishonest. You can have the most productive person in the world. If they sexually harass somebody, you fire them because they're doing that. It's like, but God forbid some corporate bigwig put 2 and 2 together and realize you have somebody who can't even be honest about whether they've caught a pandemic virus, and they're putting everybody around them at risk. Why do you want them to be around, in the case of many of these warehouses, buildings with millions of dollars in inventory in them? Why? Oh, but that would make our existing staffing problems worse. Oh, you mean like if a bunch of people get infected and then people get infected enough times that they end up with long COVID and are disabled, you have to let them go because they can't do the job anymore? These morons, I just don't understand it. So yeah, eventually the stupidity that these people choose to tolerate, my guess is that's how I got it, because I'm not around a lot of other people. When I do my grocery shopping for the week, it's right before the store closes. So there isn't very many people left in the store in the first place. And I pretty much have it all planned out how I stay away from people, because I know there's too much stupidity in our world for me to do otherwise. So it's very easy for me to pinpoint, especially with the timetables I know with the incubation period, what could have happened that got me infected with this. And I can definitely say, because think about this guy. Think about him. If he took the same trajectory as me, which I had only really one bad day, and it was over the weekend, and I started hammering things down with OTC meds, keep the fever and other stuff under control. And this guy, if he doesn't have the same, high blood pressure or other stuff, he has access to more medications that won't step on, his toes of his conditions, like being able to still use decongestants and stuff. When you have high blood pressure, the only real stuff that won't mess with your blood pressure is acetaminophen and aspirin. I can't really do Dayquil or NyQuil stuff anymore. So it was fun, back when I could just Dayquil my way out of most colds, but that's not really an option unless I want to put my blood pressure at risk. So it's not really a thing I want to do anymore. So this guy, assuming he took the same trajectory as me, and that's a big if. He might have been sicker for longer if he didn't have the booster. This guy would be about a day or so ahead of me. He was out Sunday. I heard he was out Sunday when I called off. So he was in a perfect position to hide the worst of COVID over the weekend. Better than I could have if I was trying to pull that stunt. Maybe use a sick day and then just pretend it's not COVID so you don't get kicked out of work. That's what these managers don't want to think about. I got news for these people. You got managers in their 50s and 60s. I don't even know how old the human resource lady is. These people are all working without masks. You got someone stealth infecting people in the building. You really want to put up with that? Now, I mean, I'm 40 and this is my story. Think about someone that's like 50, 60 with comorbidities. You know, maybe people with more comorbidities, with more underlying conditions than I have. Like, why would these people? It's their business, and it's also their careers, their livelihoods, and their ability to retire that's in play here. And it's like, would they really want to risk everything falling apart at the very end of their careers? It's like, why? You know? So yeah, my I very much think that it was that guy coughing up a storm, no mask, etc. That's the reason why I got this thing. The timetables match up perfectly, and I didn't have hardly any other interactions with people. It's mostly just work and sleep, and somebody else should have been out on my team if that was the case. If there was somebody more close to me in the building that had it and didn't know they had it. So it all points everything that I've thought about trying to, detective this thing points to that. So sore throat and everything started on Friday. The fever started on Saturday. By the wee hours of the morning on Sunday, I peaked out at 103.4, 100 and, what was it? Almost 104 degrees? Yeah, 103.4 degrees was like what it got up to. 103.4, and that's with medication. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, how much higher is this going to be? I was already almost at the max dose of these things. Didn't have these yet. And I decided to start weaving in a second thing to drop the fever because I was almost hitting the limit on acetaminophen. So, yeah, there's a daily limit on everything. You don't want to go over it. You don't want to risk, damaging your liver or something trying to bring down a fever. So I'm up here like, what's it going to be like when the pills wear off? If I'm like over 103 now, I end up in the ER. Also, fevers speed up your metabolism, and they also speed up your heart rate. So the tiniest little thing I did made my heart race. And I was like, is this COVID? I don't think this is a throat bug anymore. Is this COVID? So, yeah, I actually end up in the ER because it's 1 a.m. and nothing else is open. More crap that I have to deal with here. So I end up in the ER. Their night shift people are very, very friendly. The doctor who does night shift stuff for them probably has the best bedside manner, as they call it, out of anybody. Probably the friendliest doctor I've seen in a long time. Maybe he was mellow because he works nights. But yeah, it was the PCR test to see if it was COVID, flu, pneumonia, or RSV or anything like that tripped that it was COVID positive. But I had a warning sign even before that happened. If you follow my Twitter, you've probably seen this. Let's see. Where's my browser mode on this thing? Browser mode. Link the web browser to Chrome. Why is everything so slow? All right, there we go. Welcome to Twitter. What's trending right now? Oh, bring back masks is trending. Gee, I wonder why. So, this is actually the antigen test that you can I zoom it? Probably not because it's Twitter. Yeah, and it's Elon Musk. Oh, wait, I could zoom it for like a second. Control 0. Bring back masks is trending. Why am I not surprised? But right about here, the tiniest little bit of pink pixels. The beginnings of a second line. This is when my fever was absolutely skyrocketing. I'd never had. Oh, we loaded something. We had a little bit of a lag spike. It's not as bad as it was before, but yeah, tiny little second line. And this really underscores the problems with these antigen tests, is that they need to pick up enough material to start to give you a convincing result. So, it was interference because I was loading something. I'm probably using too much bandwidth. Oops. Why am I at 7.7 megabits per second? Oh, why does it say? No, that's just a baseline for that. Let me see. OBS. I'm at $6,000. Maybe there's some problems with the power line devices and I forgot to test. Either way, the tiny beginnings of a second bar right there. So at this time, my symptoms were mostly in my throat. They were mostly in my throat, and I had the fever. There wasn't really much going on my nose yet. Once I started having those runny noses, that's when once I started having these regular runny freaking noses, like, keep one of these things handy. That is when I got stuff like this, when there was a lot of material. And in the case of this one with that second, and in the case of this one with the second line, which is hard to see, in the case of this, can I just scroll to the one that actually had the very dark second line? My Facebook had a bazillion updates for my family and friends who've been watching my situation closely, because I'm a similar age to my late cousin and have a few underlying risk factors in common with him, like weight and stuff like that. So in many ways, I'm like the guinea pig. Trying to find it. November 3rd. We're going back too far. I don't think I actually took a picture. Did I ever actually take a... Well, I'm scrolling through all my cat pictures and stuff. It finally got me. Well, I just checked the thread. I never uploaded the picture. Not on my Twitter. It's only been on my Facebook. No. There's got to be something. Or maybe I am getting everything mixed up, because I didn't hardly talk about this much on Twitter. No, it's mostly, yeah. You know what? Why don't we just do that? Let's see. Why don't we just add another tweet? And this is what it's like when your nose is running like a mofo. And what was it? And this is what it's like when your nose is running like a mofo and everything's no. And it turns positive so fast, the T line shows up way before the control line. Eyeballs. Let me get the picture. Let me fetch that out of my... Oh, no, I was already there. See users J. Not the MultimediaJay one, the regular J one. Where is that picture? I think I might have taken... let me go. I took that off the camera because I took a picture of the PCR test. Not my desktop. Yeah, all this just to make a tweet. What's wrong with me, man? Desktop. All this just to make a tweet so I can put the picture of the test on the screen here. Oh, I gotta sort it by name. Still in regular mode, right? Yeah. Sort by date, please. I got that picture of that dark, like close-ups of... I got that on here somewhere. Where was it? Where was it? This is crazy. I thought I had it. Does I really need to go to Facebook or something and just copy paste it? Let me see here. COVID. Vaccine cards. That's not it. Maybe I do have pictures. It's interesting. Wow. I really got to work on this stuff here. Sort by date. Let me just go back in like descending. Let me go back in by descending order. Once it sorts, if it ever sorts. A bunch of pictures there. Oh, there's a picture of an ivermectin kit from India that some people were passing around saying, why don't we have this in the US? All right. Let's see. COVID. Doink. It's just vaccine cards. I don't understand. I don't get it. Was it on the... Did I put it on my other desktop, though? Users, J, desktop. Did I have that picture there? Let me just see. View by large icons. Looking at my other desktop from my main desktop. Oh, the Dankies emote. No, I don't understand. Well, I probably still have it on the phone, don't I? You know what? Why don't we just be stupid about this? But I know I had this somewhere. Oh, so what's this? Someone send me a friend request? Oh, I got some other random follower on Twitter. Either way, you folks have seen it. You folks have seen it live. I don't even need to put this tweet in here. Discard. You folks have seen it live. Let me just get some kind of light mode thing going here. Like, say, what's a bright site that I could use? New York Times. New, or even the CDC's own. Wait a minute. CDC's variant thing. There we go. Light it up. Yeah. See, yeah. See, this one's so dark. I'll find the picture and put it up afterwards. The T is actually way darker than the C line. But yeah, there's a phase with. But yeah, there was a phase. There's a phase with. Well, let's get back to the other setup here. So there was a phase. So yeah, there was a phase where it was all the fever and stuff. And once I started weaving some aspirin into this to augment this, because you gotta be careful with this will damage your liver if you take too much of it. So when I started weaving aspirin in, that's what finally brought everything down. The hospital folks did it with Motrin, but that's ibuprofen, not really good for high blood pressure. So I set up aspirin as a second fever reducer. The thing is, though, because I was in isolation, I wound up having to do a delivery order from Walmart and had to wait several hours and hope the fever didn't come back. Here's the thing, though. After I got all this stuff, the fever started dropping off rapidly. The next day, I started at like 100 degrees instead of 102. It actually responded a lot quicker with less medication. So the fever eventually became something that well, every single day I was taking enough medication to break the fever with medication. You know the thing where you wake up and it's all cold sweat and stuff because you had a fever and it broke? Literally every single day I was doing that with medication, but then I'd go back to sleep and wake up with a fever again, like, oh yeah, it was just the pills. Well, a day or two ago, probably more than like 2 days ago now, I washed the bedding. I washed the bedding because I was like, oh, I washed the bed. It's like, oh, maybe the fever will be over. Well, and I won't have any of this. Well, wake up with an even bigger cold sweat because the fever broke for real. And I haven't had to take anything for it since. The fever's been gone for like a few days now. And the random runny noses eventually stopped. And now it's just a matter. It feels more like I'm getting over bronchitis than anything else now. So could theoretically, according to my doctor, end isolation and go back to work tonight. I don't know if the paperwork will clear, if it'll be a good idea, having been so sedentary for so long, to go straight back. Let's see if HR can just let me not go back for the last day of the week and just start fresh with the new work week. Plus, it'd be better for the business. I may not even be testing negative yet. I don't know. I haven't taken an antigen test. I'm running low on those. But I can theoretically end isolation and actually go out with a high-quality mask starting today. So I can go buy tests or go do some other stuff. So I can buy tests and I can do some other stuff or things along those lines. So as long as I wear a good mask wherever I go, which I have plenty of KF94s now to go through. So I have lots of KF94s to go through and stuff like that. How dry is it? Are we getting back to wintry weather? We're getting towards that again. Whoo, yeah, it was nice and warm. I was out, relaxing on the porch when I was in isolation, staying away from people, of course, but a little fresh air worked really well for helping clear things up instead of being stuck in the house all the time. Yeah, so that's my story, really. It really showcases just what technology has done for this thing with the vaccines and the treatments. So even if there is a Paxlovid rebound from this stuff, there's not much for it to rebound to. So I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Now, the fever was already gone. What am I going to get? A runny nose or two? I don't know. I don't even know if you'll even come to that. We'll see what happens. But either way, I'm going to get up and stretch out a bit here. The important thing to remember, though, is I'm a similar age and I have similar risk factors to my cousin who died from Delta last year. But the bivalent booster, though, when I factor in the bivalent boosters as well as keeping the fever in check and stuff like that, I only really had one bad day, and that was Sunday when the fever seemed uncontrollable. The rest of the time wasn't all that much worse than the low-grade fever I got from getting the shots. Let's get up and stretch a bit, and we'll come back and talk about this a little bit more. But I'll just cut off the song. Who cares? See, we getting any drop frames? It looks like a little bit of an unstable connection there. I should just do a restart on the modem before I do these things. It's the only thing I forgot to do tonight. Well, that was interesting. Try and eat healthier in my old age, and some of it's working better than others. All right. So prior to, and what's downloading? Something keeps spiking the download bandwidth. It's not my not Windows Update. I have that paused. So prior to the break, I made an allusion to the situation with my late cousin, Scotsman Josh. And when I tested positive for COVID, all I could think of was, well, I guess now we're going to see what a difference all of this stuff has made. But I couldn't stop thinking of Josh most of the time. Here was a guy. He was similar age, similar risk factors, had some crap going on with his health. The Delta variant caught him without any vaccines. He progressed very quickly to bad fever, falling on the floor from the muscle aches, oxygen problems, wound up in the hospital because of oxygen problems, wound up in the ICU, wound up on a ventilator. And then it was a good days, bad days thing while he was hooked up to that thing. There was even a time when they almost thought they could take him off of it until he took a turn for the worst and passed away. I would have gotten vaccinated even if I didn't know, even if that wasn't, even without factoring that in. But I think a lot of what killed him was the culture of hating science. He's in Florida during the Delta wave, and we saw what just happened with Ron DeSantis getting reelected and all of the propaganda he's pushing that plays with your emotions if you have certain feelings about certain issues. But it doesn't have a lot of facts behind it. And that's what killed my cousin. Rhetoric over reality. And I don't think, I was reading some of his Facebook responses to people that are like, Josh, you didn't get any COVID shots? Are you trying to talk to me like I'm a kid who got caught with his hand in the cookie jar? Don't you think that if I had gotten the shots, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in right now? I was like, there it is. He was one of the out of the rest of my cousins in my family, he was probably one of the coolest guys I knew. Chill, mellow. We even played some online games together, like Pirates of the Burning Sea. The most gamer-ish, probably the only other person in the whole freaking family that ever actually, was nice to me about the whole video games thing, and actually might have even tried to play a game online with me. Most of my cousins, I can't even get them to, say hi on Facebook. This guy actually would play, essentially an MMO with ships with me. Just crazy. One of the many ways I'm such a loner. Yeah, I'm into games and stuff, but don't really have any offline world friends, and a lot of other folks in my family just don't, for whatever reason, really seem to care about any of this gaming stuff. They don't even seem to care about getting into, playing some games together or something like that to, close the distance that this family has. So many people living in so many different states, but even in this day of social media, we don't talk to each other. I don't know. I don't know why I'm even still using this. I'm pretty much all dried up at this point. I could probably even test negative on an antigen test. No more runny noses or anything. I might want to run the humidifier or something because it's getting a little too dry in here for what's left of this. Oh. But yeah, so when I tested positive, all I could think of was my cousin, and like, well, this is now we're going to see the difference in the stories between us two and what happened as a result. Well, at this stage of the game, he was in the hospital heading towards the ICU because of oxygen problems. I've never actually had any oxygen problems the entire time I've had this thing. 98%. That's right, I have this thing on manual focus. There. Nope, I just blanked it out. This thing is terrible at running vertically. I was trying to take a picture of me giving the virus the finger because I was getting over it so quickly, but 98.75. These are numbers that are similar to what I've been seeing all along. Not bad. You know, I'm over here worked up talking at only 75 BPMs. I'm pretty relaxed. I'm pretty relaxed. So this wouldn't have been possible when I still had the fever. So definitely. And when just doing even the tiniest little bit of strenuous thing makes you feel like as stressed as if you're getting exercise. It's not a way to live, folks. It's not a way to live. So yeah, well, there's the difference. There's the difference. Full course of Moderna boosters, monovalent boosters, and now the bivalent booster in September. Catch it in November. The net total of all of this was just really one bad day. That's it. If it wasn't for me not being one of those people who will work sick and put others at risk, could have gone back, probably could have hid this very easily. But I think this is something that I probably want to talk to corporate about. I think it's a threat to the business. This company knows what's good for it, and they actually really care about their valued associates. They're going to figure something out about all of this. Otherwise, they're at risk the whole time. I got to find that picture too. I know I put it on Facebook, so I'll make that tweet later. For now, though, why don't we take a look at some of the numbers here? So let me give me CDC community transmission as well. We'll just put it all in this group of tabs we were looking at earlier. The current state of the pandemic is that it's a total hodgepodge. CDC community transmission. Let's see here. Is this the community transmission map? I'm trying to load it up here. Let's see. Maps, charts, data basics, Why is this so? Why do I have to keep putting a link to this thing? Why do I have to keep putting a link to this thing? Community level? Oh, transmission levels. Let me just click that and go straight to it. It's in the pop-up up top for the CDC. All right. See here. Go back to browser mode. Go back to browser mode. So community transmission, the guidance before everything got political for the midterms was that you would wear a mask if there was substantial or high transmission in your area. So you see there's chunks of Florida where it's moderate. The Beltway, DC area is moderate. There's chunks of California where it's moderate, Washington State, etc. I mean, there's places where there isn't as much COVID going around, or people are hiding the details, or people are hiding cases. And then there's this. I mean, this was all red about a month or so ago. So community transmission is even dropping off in the Northeast. It just has to drop down one more level, except in New Haven County. I don't know what the deal is with that. Why is New Haven always the worst in Connecticut over and over again? Or maybe it's because of Yale New Haven Hospital or something. I do know that the XBB variant arrived from Asia in New York, and that's New York City's having some problems. All the X variants are Deltacrons. They might be a risk of taking another step up in severity, kind of like what BA.5 did. Maybe not up to the level of the Delta variant and the older variants that attack deeper in the lungs, but the X variants that are going around are being very closely watched to see if they turn out to be worse than what we've been seeing with the B variants in here and stuff like that. But yeah, this is community transmission. There's less of it than before, but the Northeast still has plenty of virus going around. And this is only the reported cases. We also, in the state, it's cool having antigen tests and everything, but that also means people can hide cases. They can see it, they're positive, and they're like, oh crap, I guess I got to pretend I have a cold now and try and not get caught. And naive business people like to pretend that people like that don't exist and put people at risk. Whatever. Here's the variants. Region HHS, Region 1 New England. BA.5. This is week ending 11/5. So the week I would have caught it. This is the week I would have caught it then, because we're up to what, the 10th now? Yeah, this is the week I would have caught it. BA.5, 39%. And then we have all of these. BA.4/6, the descendant of BA.4. Then there's the BQ variants, which are highly immune evasive. BF7 is the one that can cause chest pains and stuff along those lines, in addition, more often than some of the others. And there's some Centaurus in the mix. Some other stuff over there too. What's the red? That's Centaurus. Okay, and maroon? That's Centaurus Generation 2. Many of these newer variants can also evade infusion treatments like monoclonal antibodies. There's our splits for that other stuff. But yeah, it's a hodgepodge out there. I say it's like the Roman emperors. It's like the Roman emperors. You study Roman history, you learn about the Caesars, Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, etc. You learn about the dynasties and whatnot. And then you get to the emperors where you're only going to know who they are if you're a nerd that studies Roman history. They're not the ones that the general public will know about. They're not the Caesars or anything like that. No, they're not Nero or anything. And then there's the years when multiple people claim to be emperor at the same time. When it gets even more complicated. And that's kind of what I think we've gotten to with this. Variants are more, they're more known for what they do rather than the specific mutations at this point. So, yeah, specific mutations at this point. So you have the hodgepodge in America right now, but you have the X variants being monitored in case they're more serious than they otherwise would be. And that's the state we're in right now, though. We can only hope that the government gets serious about this again and revises guidance, especially if we get a surge of stuff in the wintertime. But I can definitely say you should do everything you can to not get this thing. You know, there's a risk of long COVID. There's a risk of dying from it. There's risks all over the place. But even if it doesn't kill you, there's also the risk of, how much money do you want to spend on health stuff, and what else could you have done with that money? I can tell you, just in co-pays alone, trip the Google speakers by talking about co-pays. What? I can tell you, just in co-pays alone, I could have done something else with that money. So it's something to think about. But that's my story. Hopefully, if the 9-to-5ers don't have a problem, I can spend the last few days getting a little, moving around a bit, trying to get used to run it, so I'm not going back cold turkey after being sedentary for a week. And let's keep this handy to make sure I don't overwork myself trying to get back into the swing of things. 97.76, I'd say I have some headroom considering what's been going on. These are pretty cool, too. These LPOWs, even my doctor's office uses these things. You can program them so that they beep in real time. And the newest ones are Bluetooth and hook up to an app. So if you want to check your pulse when you're exercising in a rather crude way, you have that option with something that only costs $16 as opposed to whatever a Fitbit is up to these days. But yeah, that's my story. I'm just upset, and most of the ranting that I can do, that's my COVID story. I'm just upset, and much of the ranting that I can do is about the unfortunate reality that we have entered a world where companies are so stupid that they don't realize they're ceding all their best people to jackasses who are dishonest. And here's why. Considering the course that this took, considering I had all my shots, only really had one bad day with the virus, let's pretend I was one of those dishonest people. I could have hid this so easily and put others at risk. Could have taken my mask off because there's no more mask requirements or anything. I could have called off on Sunday with the bad fever and then knocked the fever down on Monday and just burned a sick day and then just not told anybody. And if someone confronted me like, hey, you don't look so well, I'm like, it's just a cold. If they press, I could say, look, there's a lot of stuff going around. There's flu, there's RSV, etc. And you know what it would take for someone to have suspicion that it's COVID? Someone being honest enough to say it was COVID. But then what? Does the company do the managers have any way of requiring someone to get tested to return to work if they're suspicious? Not anymore, from what I'm hearing. So that's the world we've entered into. The pandemic has boiled down to exactly what I've been saying it's been all this time: a character test. You're only as strong, so to speak, as whoever has the worst attitude about the pandemic. If you work somewhere that tolerates a moron who is going to pretend they don't have it in order to not have to go through the process, and they're going to work sick, you're going to have to make the choice whether you want to keep that job or not. And what a disaster that now you have to look at finding another job and everything that comes with it because of someone else. It's far from fair. That's the stupid world we've wandered into. I called it March of the Stupids so many times. And here we are. Oh, I get infected over and over again because people want to be morons about it. And you know what the saddest part is? One of the reasons why Western countries are such pansy asses about COVID is because they don't want to look like China. You don't want to look like Xi Jinping and the zero COVID policies over there and stuff like that, and the lockdowns and the forced quarantines and everything that's going on in China. Here's the thing, though. This is a more colorful oximeter. It looks like an Atari game. Sometimes it counts each lub and dup as its own heartbeat, and it says my heart rate is double what it actually is. I don't know. Maybe it's getting smarter. Does it learn? I don't know. Whatever. Here's the thing with China. China has its own unique problems when it comes to COVID response. They didn't vaccinate as many of the more vulnerable elderly and stuff like that as we did here in the States. And they also have this sabotaging nationalism about mRNA vaccines, because mRNA is like a foreigner technology or something. Beijing wouldn't authorize them. And Sinovac and other vaccines they have locally weren't as good. So you're up against newer and newer variants with crappier vaccines and a rollout strategy that excluded a lot of the most vulnerable people that could be most prone to getting killed by it or spreading it. So if we here in the United States got tougher on COVID, we would not instantly turn into China, because we have more of our more vulnerable vaccinated and better vaccines. We also have treatments like Paxlovid, and we're in the best position with these kinds of things. Canada, I think, is still trying to get this. UK trying to get this as well. We have all this stuff available. Just got to fund it. Just got to fund it. So stop letting the Republicans sabotage the funding in Congress. Which means getting Republicans to actually care about people's health. Good luck with that. But absent the political bullshit, sorry, I don't care if I get demonetized for this. Absent the political bullshit, we're in very good shape as a country. We won't turn into China if we decide to get more serious and to have like a sliding scale of mitigations where mask mandates, for example, come back if there's a certain level of community transmission. And then it goes away when that goes away. And we're like, oh, what about the economy and the effects of the economy? As opposed to sickness, lost time, people lowered productivity, safety issues, the whole 9 yards. We've already talked about all that. When we were smarter about this, we realized that spending money to fight this thing was less expensive than letting it rip. Now we're letting it rip. What an embarrassment. But I will say this. At very least, it'd be nice if the CDC and people in Washington stopped treating mask like it's a dirty word. There's plenty of masks around too. Not hard to get some N95s, not hard to get some KF94s or KN95s or something else in the high quality camp. Just don't buy any counterfeits. It's not hard to get something decent for yourself. And furthermore, there's non-COVID stuff going around that you might want to wear a mask for. There's non-COVID stuff going around. The South right now is getting shredded by a nasty early flu season in certain states. It's another reason to not turn people's health and stuff like this into something political. If it's bad for you to wear a mask and you have all this glut of masks around, easy to get, don't cost very much, when you have the flu, RSV, all kinds of other crap going around, why would you let politics get in the way of not being miserable because you got pounded by the flu? It's like, common sense, anyone? Anywhere? Is at the point where I see someone wearing a mask around here, I consider it a sign of intelligence. I'm like, there's someone cool. They actually exist around here. And Walensky called it a scarlet letter. Give me a break. Ugh. Well, there's the rant for that. Human stupidity has landed us in a very bad spot. And after years of not getting this thing, finally got it. Of course, it was quite the turnaround, given that I got all the shots and everything, and I got stuff to combat it with, and my risk factors qualified me for Paxlovid, so we got that too, and all the metal mouth. Yeah, see, that's the thing too with these things. Those of you that aren't familiar, there's a little metal mouth problem with this stuff. The main thing that flushes out the virus is incredibly bitter. Goes into your system, goes around your bloodstream, kills viruses, etc. But it also can make its way into your saliva, and then you taste it again because of that. So you have this metallic, bitter taste in your mouth. Hey, I'll take metallic, bitter taste over any of the complications of long COVID any day. So, either way. So yeah, human stupidity has landed us in a very bad spot between everything and all players involved. From Washington to morons that sabotaged literally everything they could about the pandemic response, got us to 1 million deaths in this country, all that terrible stuff. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know where things get better. If they get better. Is China playing the long game? Because we could win versus them with the superior technology and stuff that we have. We don't have to make them in any way look good to the people that actually care about not getting their life destroyed by disease. Question is, when are we going to stop deciding to lose so much? 316 of the Geek House. I'm going to call it early, see what's going on with all the HR paperwork and the absence paperwork, and whether these people will let me finish the week and just go back for a fresh week instead of having to go in cold turkey tomorrow night after sitting around with this darn thing. Because that wouldn't be good. Totally would be out of shape. I don't know. COVID has made people... I like to call it human rabies sometimes, because what is rabies known for doing to, dogs and stuff that it infects? It makes them go crazy. Now, gets them sick, makes them go crazy. What do you have with COVIDiots? Yeah, they get sick and they pretty much go nuts. And then we found out about the after effects of COVID and how it can, put you at risk for dementia and stuff. Yeah, there's a lot more things I get to worry about now because some moron gave me this thing. Well, stupid America, I hope you're happy. I really hate when, through no fault of my own, my life gets worse because of some lowest common denominator. And this is one of those situations. I'm going to call it a night here. I've ranted enough. This will go under Late Night Nerd Lounge, even though it's one of the Pandemi-Rants, because it's a chat stream. We'll get back to the other stuff at some point. I really don't know if I should be trying to record videos, though, if I still sound congested. Might have to wait for the rest of this to clear before I get back into that stuff. Whatever, COVID. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.